My name is Carrasco Quintana. I'm a real estate attorney based in Woodbridge, New Jersey, and today we're going to cover some trends that I've noticed in my practice in the last quarter of the year or so, and how we can help our clients moving forward to get that successful transaction, or to perhaps make sure that their transaction is structured properly, that it's going to get them to the finish line. So one thing you have to remember about New Jersey is that we do everything a little bit differently, including the real estate market. So while prices in other parts of the country may be falling, that's not so much true in New Jersey, and certainly not for certain municipalities and certain towns. So that conflated with the higher than, I wouldn't say normal interest rate, but the higher than the pandemic time interest rate can make it really tricky in terms of financing. So you have a kind of a perfect storm where a buyer may very easily fall out of their DTI or their debt to income ratio. So as we're going along the transaction, perhaps there's some obligations that have come up that the lender didn't know about, and now that's being taken into account, and that's going to bring the client outside of what they can afford. Or potentially there was a gift that was on the table and not disclosed, and now the buyer is no longer able to get that gift for closing. And again, now they are not able to close. The solution for that is very easy. It's to disclose the gift to your lender, disclose the gift to your agent, disclose the gift to your attorney, absolutely, because that's something that's gonna have to be taken care of during the attorney review process to make sure the seller does know that there is a gift in play, and that if that gift does not come through, that you're able to cancel with a mortgage denial from your lender. If that gift is not disclosed, you're not going to be able to hand over to the seller a denial that says, hey, my client was supposed to get a gift, but now he's not getting his gift and he can't buy this house. The seller is going to say, I never knew about this gift. So that earnest money deposit, that initial escrow that's held to hold the contract, might now be in play. It might be an argument where the seller wants to hold on to some of that because contractually things weren't disclosed adequately, and you've wasted the seller's time, right? Potentially not intentionally, because it's not something that you knew if you didn't have the proper counsel that needed to be disclosed, but sellers are much more apt to fight the return of that deposit. And that is happening a lot because we are going over, and when I just say we, it's mostly in the industry, those mortgage commitments are not being delivered on time, and the communication is not there. So you may have a mortgage commitment that was due on December 1st, and now it's December 15th, and the seller has no idea what's going on with it, right? There's not been an actual extension. We don't know what conditions are outstanding. So when they get a denial at the end of the day because the buyer is short on funds, well, their question is, how did this happen, right? If you have a pre-approval, a legitimate pre-approval, your lender should have reviewed all of these things with you and said, okay, this is your income, these are your debts. What I always say is come completely naked to your lender. They need to know everything, right? They need to know child support. They need to know if you're paying for your kids' college. They need to know if you help your mom pay her mortgage, because those are all things that are gonna affect your ability to qualify. And not that that's my area of expertise, but where my expertise does come in is the negotiations that then come into play when somebody's trying to cancel because they have a mortgage denial. And again, sellers are not apt so much anymore to just say, oh, you have a denial, great, I'll move on. Particularly when deals are dragging. They're dragging a month, they're dragging 2 months, all waiting for that coveted approval and that CTC. And at the end of the day, right before closing, it doesn't come. And that's a letdown, I understand, for the buyer and my client, right? But it's also a letdown for the seller. We also have to remember there's humans on all sides of these transactions, right? Someone is selling their home, it has a lot of history for them, it has a lot of value, or even if it's a flip or an investment, right? They have plans. They have plans around timing, and they have plans with their funds. And now they're being told just a week or a couple of days before closing that the buyer doesn't qualify. So the key to that is working with a really good team and making sure that the communication is there, right? If there's an issue with the loan, address it early on. If you're going to need an extension, have your lender communicate that with your attorney, because your attorney is in the best position to be able to negotiate whether it's an extension or some other kind of mechanism that's going to allow you to have a successful transaction. So while we all want, at the end of the day, our clients to close and to be happy in their new home, that's not always what happens. But worst case scenario really is that a buyer ends up without their home and without their earnest money deposit. That's why one thing I do counsel my buyers, unfortunately, by the time they come to me, it's too late because they've already signed that contract, and we can make some changes in the contract, but changing the earnest money deposit from $100,000 to $20,000 is gonna ring off some alarm bells for sellers. So the best way to protect your client, we don't want them to lose any money, right? Certainly. But what you don't want is a large amount of money to either be lost or held up, right? Because escrow can't be released until everybody agrees. So the seller's attorney and the buyer's attorney. So something I would counsel buyers, this is your transaction, so you should be in the driver's seat, but also agents. You do not need to make that earnest money deposit equal your client's down payment. I think it's not a good idea. It puts a lot at risk for your client. And there's a lot of other ways to show a seller that your client will be able to perform, whether that's providing proof of funds, right? That down payment is there, although you're not giving it all up front. So these are all things to keep in mind when counseling your clients. And I think in terms of the rate of failure that we're seeing with transactions because of lending, a lot of it comes down to not having the proper counseling ahead of time. And so in my office, I offer to speak to buyers before they're under contract, so they understand what these terms mean. People also are waiving appraisal. A lot of properties are under appraising. So you waive appraisal and you said, okay, I'm willing to pay the $20,000 out of pocket should it under appraise, because someone's told you that's never gonna happen, right? The property's always appraised for the value. Come to find out, it's under appraised 15. And now that buyer maybe doesn't have the funds, which then shame on the rest of us because we should have seen the proof of funds for that, or they simply don't want to proceed. And without the proper counseling, they don't understand that they do have to move forward with that waiver if they made it during the contract period and it was confirmed during attorney review. So the proper counseling and making sure your clients understand the ramifications of those agreements during the contract period and attorney review are crucial. Speaking to the clients before they get under contract, and then having a very clear picture and communication between your attorney, your lender, and your agent is crucial because we're all on the same page. I've called lenders before and say, hey, this client's waiving $50,000 of the appraisal. I don't know his finances, but you do, right? Can you get the okay from the buyer to let me know that they have those funds, right? And that this isn't gonna be a contractual issue later. So I hope you guys learned something that you can take with you into the new year. If you are thinking of buying a home, or if you're an agent that is helping first-time home buyers, or even people who've done this a million times, feel free to reach out before you have that contract in hand, right? Before you have that accepted offer, to make sure that you're comfortable with everything that's in there and that you're gonna have a successful transaction going forward. So feel free to reach out. Phone number is 732-588-6504 and our website is carrascoquintana.com. Thank you.